Hello, this is Chris Skazdik. You have landed on Through a Therapist's Eyes, the podcast, where we invite you to get personal insights from a therapist directly in your car or personal time in your home. See the world through the lens of a therapist, but be aware this is not the delivery of therapy services in any way. You can help us out. We love doing the show, and I thank you for listening. So we have an anonymous voice this day that's going to help us tell you how to help us. How do they help us?
Yeah, you can definitely give us 5 stars and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite streaming platform.
There you go, rocking it. And you can contact us at contact@throughatherapist'seyes.com. You got to leave us an email, Craig. They gave us some emails and stuff and questions, and we couldn't respond, man.
Yeah, why don't you read them on the show?
Well, I think we did with the one. What did we do with that, sir?
You have responded, but the question was like, how do I contact you, or how can I talk to you? And it's like, so it wasn't really a question. It was just like, can I ask you a question? Well, yeah, but
it was that. How do I ask you a question?
Somebody sent a question and said, "Can I ask you a question?"
Yes.
And didn't leave an email address.
Yes, so we couldn't help. So if you
That's
do
a problem.
contact it through a therapist's eyes, we love interacting with you. Please definitely let us know how to contact you, though. Listen, Mr. Graves, you know what we do here, the human emotional experience, and we endeavor to figure this out together, right?
That's right.
And we have, as you hear, he's back, y'all. The bold, the beautiful, the amazing Mr. Craig Gray.
Getting a little crazy this time.
That wasn't as good as the
Bold and beautiful.
maybe
bold.
Bold. You're beautiful.
You think I'm beautiful, dude?
Dude, you're a beautiful person. You are absolutely a beautiful person. I know this man well,
Oh.
and he is back with
I usually
us.
say when people say that kind of stuff, I say it's because you don't know me yet.
I know you though, man. I know you. So you were with us, and to help the audience understand, it was what we did. 165 we just recorded. And so you must have been show 164. Do I have that right? I think we have head nods. So episode 164, Craig gave us a bunch of teaching moments about the coaching program that you've been doing. And we're going to start out by revisiting some of those things. So you probably definitely want to click back and hit the first parts of that show on breathing and stuff, because I think there's some additional things that you wanted to cover. Housekeeping items, though, as well. We got our timing kind of screwed up. Neil, I haven't even talked to you about this yet, but we recorded late because I was sick, and we recorded on a Sunday, and we didn't get that out last week, so that's what happened. We're going to give ourselves a little bit of a cushion, and then on Thanksgiving, we usually record on Thursday. So I think I made the executive decision that we're going to take a week off, give ourselves a break for the Thanksgiving holiday, and so you'll see that gap there as well. And then who knows what happens for Christmas and New Year's. Hopefully I'm going to be on an island somewhere or something.
Oh, you going to take a trip?
Seems like we can't get anything scheduled, but the idea, I think my newest idea is to go down somewhere on the coast and maybe take a deep sea fishing tour.
Dude, that sounds awesome.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
that sounds really cool.
I want to be somewhere.
Who you and Lisa or what?
Just the four of us, yes.
Oh,
Just the
okay,
four of us
family
do a
trip.
Family trip.
Nice.
We've started to do some different things lately. You know, we went to Snowshoe, West Virginia on Christmas Day. We were on a cruise boat on Christmas Day. It's just kind of cool. You know, the kids are older.
Cruise boat at Snowshoe?
No, 2 different trips.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, we
What?
can't do a boat at the
do a boat at
ski
Snowshoe.
resort.
Yeah.
That would be cool, though. Take a boat down the ski slope.
No, that wouldn't be cool. You'd have no control. It'd be bad.
Well, I'd be strapped in.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it'd be okay. I'm adventurous.
Yeah. Well, you strapped in and right into a tree.
That takes me back to my kid on Suicide Hill. But we do digress. All right, so let's launch into today. Before we do, man, catch us up. You told us on episode 164 what you're doing, how people can contact you. You're like the fearless Mr. Coach now, international, right?
Yeah, pretty much. wininyourmind.com is kind of how you can get in touch with me. I didn't say this last time, but what I'm doing, Chris, is I'm taking that mastermind that you're a part of and expanding that for small business owners and incorporating these concepts we're talking about into that group. And
it's a great group, by the way.
Yeah, we're going to take it to the next level. We're going to really focus on building some good relationships in that group, and we're going to train, on all 5 of those mountains we talked about. I'm not sure if we talked about all those or not. But we're going to go out to California and do a 20X together as a group. And so it's going to be amazing, dude.
Not with our group.
Not with our group. At least not. I know one of our group won't do it.
That sounds terrifying. So you're seriously going to take a trip? That's a cool concept. Seriously, I won't get that.
Yeah.
Because I know what you've done out there. I mean, that is an amazing experience.
It's definitely about building relationships. And if you go 12 hours with a cadre of Navy SEALs working together to get through that event, you're going to come out of that thing with some relationships forged by fire. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're looking to do.
Yeah, that's pretty.
It's going to be awesome.
That's honestly, y'all, if you're listening to this, man, and you're interested in that group that he's talking about, that is, I would submit to you, without a doubt, unquestionably, a life-changing event.
Yeah, and you can speak to the benefits of the group itself, right?
Right.
We created this group 4 years ago, and we're still meeting every Tuesday morning, even now.
Oh, yeah.
And there's 8 of us who get together and talk about business and life and everything else.
It's irreplaceable.
Yeah.
It's an irreplaceable life experience to be able to have a group of people that you can really rely on, count on, talk to, learn from, grow with.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I already gave you a good spot for that, though.
You did.
You use that?
I haven't used it yet, but I've got it. It's in my back pocket.
It's in the back pocket.
Yeah.
What else you doing with coaching?
That's my primary focus right now. I'm working with some one-on-one clients, and I'm also leading a boat crew for Commander Divine's organization, Unbeatable Mind. So those are some of the things I'm doing. But my main focus is putting these masterminds together.
Should we get the anonymous voice again and go wininyourmind.com?
We could.
I think she's shaking. She's done.
Voice.
I think that's over.
Oh, okay.
We've passed.
Nah, I'm done.
That's cool. So we are talking about a really cool topic, I think, tonight. It is, after the review pieces, we're going to get to it. It is, I don't know how to really highlight the importance that is in my mind about understanding your purpose in life. You know, you have so many barriers and so many things you're thinking about in the day-to-day that it gets you away from the important things. Mm. See how I did that rhyme? Mm-hmm. Right? Like, the purpose that you have in your life drives how you act, how you operate, how you think, how you feel, how you pray, how you play. It's a big part of the way that we live. Does that sound like a true enough and strong enough statement?
I think it should be. Yeah.
The should sounds like a big word. What you mean?
Well, I mean, I think we'll get there, but you know, I talk to a lot of people who are successful by society standards, who've never even thought about what their purpose in life is.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
They're just going through the motions and, you know, living life with no
direction.
Right. Yeah.
Feeling empty.
Absolutely. Yeah. All the things you said are absolutely true, 100%, but a lot of people have never even thought about it.
You know, it is a simple question, right? Here's a takeaway. Here's a question to ask yourself. What is my purpose in my life now? Or what is my highest purpose or my top 3 purpose? Any of those variations are, you're right, probably questions people never ask.
Yeah.
So we're going to hit to that, but we want to do some clarification stuff. What did we?
So we talked about the big 4 last time, which is breath control, positivity, visualization, and micro goals.
Should I thank you for not testing me
on mental toughness
on the big 4?
Oh, dang! I should have tested you. I didn't even think about that.
Right?
Yeah,
you failed.
I blew that one. But anyway, we talked about a couple of things during the show there. That I really feel like I needed to revisit because I didn't give real good answers. And the first thing I wanted to bring up was mouth breathing versus nose breathing. So you said that, I think, what was it? You were doing some kind of therapy practice and
yeah, I was surprised at that. What I was surprised about is in my therapy circles, deep breathing is kind of taught where you take your deep breath in and then you purse your lips and you breathe out.
But through the mouth.
Through the mouth. And it occurred to me, because I've talked to you about this before, that completely misses a big part of what proper breathing is through the nose.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I'm trying to think of why that would be, because I made some bullet points and did some research on the benefits of nose breathing versus mouth breathing. And I was listening to an interview with a guy named James Nestor. And there's a guy, you know who Wim Hof is?
No, you're the training guy.
Okay, so Wim Hof is this Swedish dude, man, and he's kind of become popular, especially on the internet, for his breathing practice. And he's a Swede, and he's this big personality, and he set like 26 world records for crazy stuff. He like climbed Mount Everest in his shorts, and
Oh, wow. Like
yes,
various
longest swim
runs.
under the water, under ice,
Oh, wow.
And anyway, so Joe Rogan was talking to this guy named James Nestor, who wrote this fascinating book about breath. And he's like, well, why does Wim teach to breathe through why is he talking about the mouth? Because Wim breathes, his practice is breathing through the mouth. And Nestor said that most people, 25 to 50% of the population, breathes through the mouth.
Really?
And what happens is if you don't use the nose, it closes up. And so what Wim's doing is just getting people to breathe.
Okay.
He wants them to take that big gulp of air.
So it's not bad to go through the mouth.
It is if you do it long term. But what the point there is most people can't take a big breath through the nose. So I'm wondering if maybe this therapy thing you're talking about is because most people can't take a big breath through the nose.
It's possible.
It could be it.
That's weird to me. There are people that, because I told you before, I mean, playing the trumpet in high school, I don't know when I started really breathing through the nose, but I've usually been a good nose breather. And that taught me as I'm breathing in and out and marching on the field. I mean, I would breathe in through my nose and be able to get a lot of air there.
Yeah, well, not everybody does. Not everybody's a mouth breather, but some people who are cannot take a breath in through the nose.
That's interesting. And I'm glad we covered that because those are types of things that you wouldn't think about when you're trying something new.
Yeah.
And that's an important part that if you're struggling with that, there might be like a learning process with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you don't use it, you lose it, right? That's an old saying or whatever.
Oh, right.
And the same thing with the nose. If we're not using the nose, it'll close up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 25 to 50% of people are chronic mouth breathers. And so these guys did this study. James Nestor, this author of this book, and this other guy went to Stanford University, and they were talking to this guy about the benefits of nose versus mouth. And he said, "Well, you should do a research study, And the guy's like, "Well, I would, but it's kind of unethical because he knows the detriment of chronic mouth breathing." So these guys volunteered to go 10 days without breathing through the nose. So they actually plugged their noses, and shut their noses off, so they could not breathe out of their nose for 10 days. He said the first night they immediately started snoring. They developed sleep apnea. Their blood pressures went up like 15%.
Holy cow!
Yeah, they became more fatigued. So all these things started happening as a result of these guys just chronically breathing through the mouth.
That is crazy.
Yeah. So if you're if you're the 25 to 50% who are chronically breathing through the mouth, then blood pressure's high. Your oxygen intake isn't as good. There's a lot going on there. Sleep apnea. A lot of sleep problems are a result of
it just
mouth
struck me
breathing
as
at
you
night.
said, you said coughing, you said snoring.
Yeah.
That I wonder how much. Look, there's so much of the emotional world that blends and mixes with the mental or the physical world, and that's a good example. There's probably very much some psychological things about nose versus mouth breathing.
Yeah,
I would submit to you.
Yeah. So some of the benefits of nose breathing. The nasal cavity is about the size of a billiard ball. So if you opened up your face right here,
holy cow,
you could put a billiard ball in there.
Really?
Yeah. And what it does is it's humidifying the air as you breathe in through the nose. The air is getting humidified. It's getting filtered, as it goes up through the, what are those little the hairs in the nose?
Yeah. Right. Nose hairs.
So it's getting filtered. It's getting humidified. The air is becoming warmer.
It's being conditioned for your body.
It's being conditioned for your body.
Wow.
And you actually take in 20% more oxygen. I keep covering my face, I think. 20% more oxygen from breathing through the nose than breathing through the mouth. So you can actually breathe less, but take in more oxygen.
That is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. And there's also, evidence or research. Kids who chronically breathe through their mouth develop what's called, I wrote it down here. It's called antenoid. Their faces become longer.
Really?
And that's he goes into it in the book too, but that's some of the reason why our teeth are also crooked, because we're mouth breathing and it's changing the shape of our face. It actually changes your skeletal structure by chronic breathing through the mouth.
Well, I like to dumb things down in my simple brain. I know this isn't able to be dumbed down very easily, but to speak sort of broadly about it, I'm willing to make a bet. I'm going to go out on a limb here and make a bold statement that our emotional self is probably very much not understood, not known yet even. Maybe smarter people than me and you know it, but very much affected by all that goes on in breathing through the nose, because we know that the parasympathetic system is very much soothed and de-escalated and calmed down when you breathe, and you breathe deeply to release the tensions that are in your body.
Yeah.
That fear chemicals, that oxygen-based oxygenation that goes through your nose. I mean, I'm trying to say that there's probably a whole lot going on there that we haven't even found out yet.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It comes to neurotransmitters, neuroprocessing, the whole 9 yards. Probably starts a whole lot by breath.
Yeah. And as I was going through this, as I was looking back over my stuff, I didn't find it. Not that it's not out there, but I didn't find any scientific literature that said that you don't tap into the parasympathetic breathing through the mouth. Mm-hmm. But I did find some stuff that said it promotes the sympathetic nervous system. So if you're breathing through the mouth, it's gonna elevate your state of
Breathe
being.
through the nose, you mean?
No, if you're breathing through the mouth, it's going to hit your sympathetic, which is more of the fight, flight, or freeze.
Oh, gotcha.
If you're breathing through, and I mean, try to take a deep breath through the nose versus the mouth, and tell me what works best. So if I close my mouth,
right,
versus, it's a different experience.
You know what's funny, Craig? I mean, this is hypothetical, I guess, right now. But when you're running from the bear in the woods and whatever, you're probably breathing through your mouth because you can get more air.
Yeah, well, if you exercise and overexert yourself, you probably will fall back to mouth breathing at some point,
thus triggering your fight or flight system to survive. That's my point.
Yeah, and you do get into a fight or flight when you're exercising in that fashion too.
Right.
Yeah.
It's fast. I tell you what, breathing is a lot
it
more.
Really
to it
is, man. It's fascinating, and sounds ridiculous, right? Because I've been breathing my whole life.
Yeah, right.
But there's a lot. There's definitely a lot to it.
The man behind the curtain's got the mic.
Yeah,
I wanna validate Craig, because we've actually, with both of our boys, they're 12 and 15. We actually went about a couple of weeks where we actually would sit around the table and we would do the nose breathing, the box breathing, and it helped my oldest so much.
Oh yeah.
And then of course we fell off the wagon. We stopped doing it, but his attitude, his anxiety, his stress, his anger, it really helped him deal with his day. And so I definitely, if you have, especially boys, I'm sure it works with girls too, but try that. Just do the box breathing through the nose with your kids, even for I think we only did like 5 or 10 times. It wasn't a lot, but it was a huge difference. So kudos.
It is a huge difference. And the interesting thing is, even people who are skeptical at first, after they sit down and do some breaths, they're like, wow, that did work. That is pretty cool.
Yeah, you've seen that in your coaching sessions, I bet, right? Where people are like,
absolutely.
Really, we're going to sit down for 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I did it on one of our calls one morning. And one of the guys on the call had me log on to his business meeting after our call was over and lead his team through a practice. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Another thing too, man, is when we sleep, we might not consciously be able to breathe through the nose. So one of the things I do, Chris, is tape my mouth while I'm sleeping to force myself to breathe through my nose. I've been doing that for years, man.
You brought it out, man. You brought it up. You brought it out. You do what?
Yeah, tape my mouth shut. I meant to bring my tape in so I could show it on video.
That is awesome.
Tape my mouth shut so to force myself to breathe through the nose while I'm sleeping.
Practice what
you
preach.
sleep 8 hours a day.
I'm so glad that you were courageous enough to do that, because people might say, "Oh my God, why do you do what?" You see,
I'm sure
you see our faces
that.
we got cameras and stuff here. But that is awesome, because let me tell you something. I will feel that in a therapy session when I'm doing breathing. As a young therapist, it felt weird. Like, I'm going to put my hands on my belly and I'm going to show you how to breathe, and I really had to get over that. So to be confident and comfortable in trying and doing these things. And so the step that you just took that I want to highlight is being able to kind of demonstrate, like, look, I may tape my mouth shut. That helps me train my brain and body to do what I want it to do. And that's not silly. That's not weird. That's like being proactive about implementing something that you know is valuable in your life. So that's awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah. And, some of the things we just talked about lead us into the second point that I wanted to bring back up, and that was the frequency of breathing. I feel like I didn't do a good job there Chris. So I said if you breathe in 16 to 20 times per minute, you're going to put yourself into a beta state, and your brain waves are going to go into a beta state, which is going to throw you into a fight, flight, or freeze response. And if you slow that breath down, you begin to get into the parasympathetic or alpha state, and you create those states. I can create those states on demand, right? So if I'm sitting here right now,
breathing through your nose,
I'm going to be in an alpha state. If I start to speed that up,
breathing quickly,
I'm going to put myself in a fight, flight, or I can feel it coming on.
Feel it. I know. I was going to say, right? When you do that,
you can definitely feel that coming on.
Yeah.
So if I'm unconsciously breathing that way, and obviously I was, what do you call it? I was emphasizing.
Yeah.
But if I'm breathing 16 to 20 times per minute, then I'm going to be in that beta fight, flight, or freeze state. And if I'm sitting around doing that 12 hours a day, man, what's that doing to my blood pressure and everything else that's going on in my body?
Yeah, and I did it. You had mentioned as well when you're sitting at your keyboard.
Yeah,
you breathe faster, right?
Yeah.
And I noticed that a little bit because you're thinking, you're typing. I'm doing my progress note at the end of a therapy session, and it does change the way that you operate. And I mentioned to you, I think that we should do a study on driving, because I think when people are driving, they're also changing their breathing rates and not realizing it.
That's
it's more
probably
anxiety
a good point.
provoking on the highway.
That's probably why we have all the road rages that we have.
It's a part.
Yeah.
I think it is a part.
Definitely. So do your breathing practice while you're driving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For real. Because what you're doing is you're resetting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a purposeful action that has a purposeful result, and it's not weird. It is like awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we ready for purpose?
I think so, man.
All right, let's get to
That's
it.
what I wanted to cover. Hopefully we did a good job with that.
I think so. We're good on time too. I was wondering about that too. So because purpose is a big topic.
It is a big topic, and I included a quote in here. The quote is from a guy named Viktor Frankl. You know who Frankl is?
No, sir.
Frankl was
I think I've actually heard you mention him before.
Yeah, we've talked about him before.
Yeah.
Frankl was a prisoner in the concentration camps in Nazi Germany.
It's crazy.
And he was also a psychiatrist.
Okay.
And he wrote many books, but A Man's Search for Meaning sold millions of copies worldwide. And it talks about his experiences in the concentration camps. And one of Frankl's quotes, he said that the desire to find and create meaning is the primary motivating force in a person's life. It's the one thing for which a person is willing to live and die. Live and die for purpose, right? So what?
Hey, mental note, Neil. Can we get that on the show notes? The book list. We haven't added a book to the book list that we're trying to get on our site, so that'd be a good one to add. What was that again? His book?
A Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah, that sounds like a good one.
Viktor Frankl. Yeah, and he's got some videos. There's some videos and stuff of him on YouTube doing interviews and talking about this.
Yeah. So if you're in your car driving, listening to this, you don't have to write it down. We'll have it on the website.
Yeah. So Frankl actually developed. He was a psychiatrist, and he actually developed a therapy called logotherapy. And logo means meaning. So his practice was to help people find meaning in their lives. And
Perfect.
His thing was a lot of people, like we just said earlier, they're just living day to day with no real purpose. Now he had this manuscript in his jacket when he was taken to the first camp, and I think the first one he went to was Auschwitz.
Oh my!
But he talks about moving around to different concentration camps during the first part of that book, and then the second part he gets into more about the therapy, about logotherapy and what it was. But I guess maybe being in that concentration camp put what he was saying to the test.
Oh yeah,
because he realized
I was just thinking that he's living it.
He realized that the people who had a reason to get out of there were a lot more likely to get out.
Right.
Now there's some luck involved, right? Because you might have you might get your head crushed in by the butt of a rifle or God knows what.
Right.
But the people that ended up surviving, a large majority of those people had some reason to get out. His reason was to deliver this manuscript to the world, and also to see his wife, which he did not know at the time had already been murdered by the Nazis. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I mean, how do you see meaning and purpose in your practice, man?
Well, I don't know. in my practice is one thing. I don't think you can do more than understanding the value of purpose when somebody has a survival story like that demonstrates the sheer power of what it is that we're talking about. When you understand what your purpose is, that can keep you alive through a concentration camp, years-long experience. I mean, there's nothing I can say that demonstrates more, what that is. Now, I think you're asking, in day-to-day life, how do people operate with that? Yeah, I mean, I think that when we're looking at, individual decisions and circumstances, life's relationships, things that you're trying to make decisions about, there are a lot of real day-to-day applications. But I want to kind of stay on the bigger picture of the power of this, because when there was a guy who wrote A Purpose-Driven Life, made it around church circles pretty strong.
Yeah, that was Rick Warren, right?
Yeah, Rick Warren's work, and that really strikes a chord whenever you touch on this topic. And unfortunately, it's not touched upon enough. That's why I was really appreciative of you bringing this topic, because it's powerful, man. Mm-hmm. It's a big part of mental health.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, from your experience, do you think, are you like me? Are you surprised at the people who don't have a clear defined purpose that come into your...
No, because I'm not. And here's why. I'll ask another therapy question I love asking at some point. What does that mean to you? Because I had somebody pose that question to me in a therapy environment. I was like, dude, I don't have an answer. I don't know. And I really had to think about it, and it triggered great exploration on my part. And so I will ask that question all the time. What does that mean to you, really? And people look at me like cross-eyed, and they're like, oh, I don't know. What are you talking about? And that's the same thing when you ask the question, what is your purpose? I just don't think that people are on that level with themselves very much. So, no, I'm not surprised at all, but we work with it.
Right. Do you help people establish a purpose? I mean, do they come in
certainly.
And ask that, or is that a direction that you go?
It's a direction that I'll go. But what's funny? I was just thinking, see, on our forums, you come into a first therapy appointment and you have an initial appointment form that you fill out that gives you the primary issues. And people say all the time on there, I want skills to manage anxiety. I would like to learn how to cope better with my marriage, or how to, whatever. And I think, doing this since 1995, that I think I can honestly sit here and say I have never had somebody on an initial appointment questionnaire ask about purpose. Isn't that something? Never. I don't think that's ever happened. Or a variation of that. I'm trying to think even of variations. I don't think people think about it, Craig. That's interesting.
Yeah.
To me.
That is interesting, right?
Yeah.
I don't think people think about that. We're not really programmed to think about those kind of things. I mean, you think about the educational system, right? You go to high school, then you go to college, and you pick some major that you may not have any kind of connection to, and you spend the next 30 or 40 years slaving away, building up for retirement. You retire and you die, right? I mean, that sounds morbid, but that's the way it is.
I think I can go you a step further. I don't get that question on the questionnaires, but I think I do get variations of frustration points where people are unhappy with certain areas of life where they think that's their purpose, or that it should be their purpose, and it's causing great distress. So that occurs to me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think people think their jobs are a purpose?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on that statement?
What do you mean? Well, I mean,
do you think that is?
Sometimes it matches, sometimes it doesn't.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is part, I'm sure, of what the 3 Ps that you're coming on, and the exercise, and kind of trying to understand that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that in a minute, I guess. But when you're thinking about purpose, people confuse that with career, right? It's not necessarily. A career may help you achieve a purpose. So if my purpose is to bring health and healing to humanity, right? Then I could be a doctor, I could be a nurse, I could be a therapist, I could be a masseuse, I could be any of those things because I'm bringing health and healing to the world. So it's not necessarily tied around a career. One of the things we talk about is archetypes, like Mark Divine would use the example of a warrior archetype. So when he was a young man, he had this warrior archetype, and so one of the ways that he filled that was going through and becoming a SEAL. But if becoming a SEAL is his purpose in life, what if he gets hurt during training?
I see what you're
Then
saying.
he's screwed. He's got no purpose anymore.
Right.
But if you're looking at a bigger picture there, then you can still fulfill that same purpose in other ways.
Well, yeah, no, I'm picking up what you're putting down for sure, because what I was thinking is there are times when your purpose matches your career, and therefore your career can be your purpose. But I hear what you're saying. I am in a transition as I've created this platform. It's very different than what I was doing just with therapy, but it's of the same purpose, which is blowing up stereotypes about mental health and stigmas and disseminating information about psychology and mental health and how we operate. And that can come out in different forms. I'm an author now. I never was an author before, so the purpose is there and it can match your career. But there's also, and I think this is when people get really unhappy or in tough spots, when they have a purpose, they might not even realize it, but you kind of know it in your spirit. And I guess we'll probably talk about that a little bit. And your job doesn't match that. And people get very great levels of dissatisfaction from
if you're unaligned, if you're
out of line,
in a job that does not
Meet.
serve your purpose
that's
in
a good
some
way to put
way,
it.
then you're gonna hate that job and it's gonna be miserable.
It's distressing.
Yeah. So how do you work with clients on establishing a purpose and meaning in life, and if so, how?
Sure I do. I mean, it's funny because I try to go where the client is when I'm meeting with them, so it's not really on their mind. So it really comes more in lengthier work with people, honestly, when I find discrepancies and things. So I got to say that probably not up front enough. But when you get into those discrepancies, then it's kind of like, okay, well, what really gets you excited about life? Kind of questions come out.
Yeah.
What do you really want in your marriage? Right. That comes out.
So you
there.
start asking questions,
Right.
Yeah, which is what we would do is in a coaching practice too.
Exactly. It starts getting to it, but I don't think people start there.
Yeah.
I don't think people start there.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So,
At least in my field.
Yeah.
I can see and see where you're going with your brain with that, where you enter into a coaching relationship, it starts out a little
Well,
bit
I
more
think just
direct
about any
there.
coaching program is probably going to have some kind of purpose exercise in it. Obituary exercise. You familiar with that one?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you write down what your obituary is going to be. Yeah.
Yeah, do all kinds of things like that.
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah.
last session, last recording, we talked about writing a love letter to yourself.
Oh, not when I was here, but the last
Yeah,
one. Okay,
right,
I hadn't
yeah.
heard that
Yeah,
one
Neil
yet.
did that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably a pretty cool
We do a lot
exercise.
of things like that, which gets at the points that we're making.
Yeah, before we go into how to figure it out, do you ever have people that come in here and say, "Yeah, man, my purpose is this, but I need your help with something else"?
Like I said, man, I don't think that I do as much.
Yeah,
When people are thinking about their emotional self, I mean, there might be people listening to the show and calling me crazy, but it's a part of the way you experience yourself. But I don't think people are on point with that at first until you begin to get to know yourself, until you begin to get some of the mental health barriers out of the way, and until you begin to look at, well, what am I dissatisfied with, and what can I reframe that and repurpose that into what fills my passion. So we get into it for sure when you do emotional work with people, but I just don't think people start out there very much, Craig.
right. Well, the way we talked about asking questions. So one of the exercises that we have in our program is the 3 Ps exercise.
Okay, so we're getting into how do we figure this out?
Yeah, so if you're listening to the show and you're like, man, I never thought about that either. How do I figure it out?
Here we go. This is how
You
you
can
do it.
ask yourself some questions. There's probably clues in your past that would point to the answer to that question. And one of the tools that we use is something we call your passion, principles, and purpose. And so we take clients through a set of questions in each one of those categories. And once you start defining your passion and principles, it begins to point to the purpose. And then when those 3 things become aligned, that points you towards your one thing mission in life.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
The 3 Ps.
The 3 Ps, your passion. So I'm just going to maybe read some of the questions, and maybe you can answer some if you want to, or give your thoughts on what they are. But what are you passionate about in a way that defines who you are?
Mm-hmm. So you want to go back and forth on these a little bit. I think we should park out a little bit on them each.
We can do whatever you want to. You know, that's cool.
Yeah. So what is this one then? So
what
brings your?
Yeah. What are you passionate about in a way that defines who you are?
Yeah. See, it's funny because as we look at the depths of that, and I'm glad we set this up in the way that we did, because I think this begins to happen more in the exploration of a therapy experience, right? So let me back up in that when I meet with somebody, you were asking me a lot of questions that were making me think a little bit. By the way, this role reversal thing that we did for a year and a half, you got to be loving this, right? You got to be loving it. That's all right. I'm good with it. I really start with, I almost feel like I want to write like an insight-oriented therapy model. I mean, I can get rich maybe making a new model of therapy that way, but I think it's that big. Developing insights about, what you're coming in with. Mm-hmm. So I'm really in the beginning of a process, very organized around helping understand, look, if this is anxiety and it's a condition, what does that mean for you? And we learn a lot about the different types of anxiety, OCD, panic disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, separation anxiety, simple phobias, all of these things, because they move around and you develop a lot of insight about yourself. Right? And then people want to learn, well, how do I cope with this? And we might throw some coping skills in there. But really we go at more at what has been successful in your life and, where have you managed this well and where do you struggle? And then we look at like ancillary social and emotional relationships and things around that. And we begin to expand, right? So we're building, this is 5, 6, 7, 10 sessions in, and we're building an understanding of life. And so then I see it as we get into a stage where now we're working with it. We got some insights, we got some things that you do, we have some ways in your life that are some ways or relationships in your life that are affected by this. And then we begin to manage these types of things on a level like the question, right?
Yeah.
Holy cow, the question is what is your life meaning? Those are things that people I don't think come in to consider. But we very much get to. Mm-hmm. I know that was a long-winded way of saying.
No, that was good, and I think you brought up some. Good points there. It's not a quick process.
No,
you said 6, 8, 10 sessions in.
Yeah,
this thing requires a lot of thought. So I would go back to the one we did on tacit learning.
Oh yes,
yeah.
It was an awesome show.
I got a document here. If you're online, I guess you can see it. But it's 3 or 4 pages long with just a bunch of different questions on it.
Yep.
So what I might do, the best way to probably do this is to work with a coach or even a therapist to figure these things out. Mm-hmm. But I would read through these questions and just give them over my subconscious mind.
Well, okay, back up. People are going to get lost then. They need to understand the tacit learning thing. So if we're going to do that,
well, go ahead.
Concept,
you can go ahead and
cover that.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. And this is a show that you can refer back to. I think it's awesome that you brought it up because, dude, I've brought this up several times in my own thinking,
cool stuff, yeah.
my own life, and in my therapy practice. Dr. Ted Spickler, you rocked it when you hung out with us. Okay, he might be already looking. What episode was that, Neil? Is the question. He came in and he talked to us about tacitly learning something. Mm-hmm. And the easiest way that I describe this to people is by learning something new. And in that episode, we talked about riding a bike, right? You cannot write a manual about how to do that and get on the bike. I mean, you can go super detailed, read an entire book about every single step to learn how to do this. Pick the kickstand up, sit on the seat, put one foot on the ground, put another one on the pedal, get somebody behind you, push you, whatever. You can go super detailed. There is never going to be the possibility where you read a manual and then you jump on and you ride a bike for the first time. It's not going to happen because your body has to experience what's going on. And he helped us learn about tacitly learning, meaning your subconscious, your brain is pulling what it sees, what it hears, sometimes what it tastes, what you feel. And it's incorporating all of that information to figure stuff out for you. So when you're falling and skinning your knee, when you're pushing and you go a foot and then 3 foot, you're picking up so much information with all of those failures, and your body is figuring it out. You don't even know it's doing it. It's literally doing it for you.
Yeah.
So that's tacitly learning how to do something. You got that episode?
58, 60.
That was episode 58, 59, and 60? Oh, okay.
Yeah, Chris, you framed that in the context of learning something new, and I agree with you. I will say this. My son, when he was a little kid, he saw somebody riding a bike with no training wheels, and he said, "Hey, I want to ride 2 wheels." So we took his training wheels off. He jumped on the bike and rode off.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, he had already been riding with training wheels or whatever.
Yeah.
But it
But there
motivated
was
him.
yeah, he just rode off. But one of the things he said, you're talking about learning something new, and I agree with you 100%. But he also talked about, like, if you're trying to solve a problem, like a math problem, I think he used the example of a math
Right.
problem.
Right.
And if you eventually, if you turn it over to your subconscious mind, you'll get it. You'll figure it out. And that happens, right? We have these problems and we can't figure out what they are. We walk away and then we're watching TV or doing something, and all of a sudden the answer pops in our head.
You know what's really cool to watch is when I'm working with somebody and I have the distinct privilege and honor of being in a therapy relationship with somebody, and we're talking about a topic, and the next session we talk about a topic, and maybe a third or fourth session we're talking about a topic. We might not even cover that topic because it's a troubled relationship for 2 or 3 more sessions, and then we talk about it again. And do you know what's happened? That whole tacit process has gone on, and then they get boom, that moment, that aha, that connection.
Where they finally get it.
Yes.
That's so fun.
It's funny. And sometimes it's over like many months.
Yeah.
I've had that happen with people.
I had a boss like that. So
Yeah.
me and this other guy would present an idea to this guy, and he would act like he didn't even hear us.
Right.
And then we'd do it again and again and again. Well, finally he'd say, "Hey, what if we did this? Let's do it." It's the thing we've been saying for,
Right.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is, when we put these things into our mind, our subconscious will continue to churn on them, even when we're not consciously thinking about it. So if I'm going through something like this, I'll read those questions and just put them there.
Don't have an answer.
Don't have to have an answer. And then I'll go back and put pen to paper and start writing down some things that are coming up. And then I'll go back and look again, and I may change some of those answers or go deeper. So the point I want to make is it's not something you're going to sit down and do in one shot.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does take time,
And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's thorough. And
It is.
honestly is happening anyway.
Right.
Like I said, this tacitly learning stuff it blew my mind, and I was really thoughtful about it on an emotional level.
Yeah.
How we're working through our emotional turmoil.
Yeah. I would even argue that just knowing that the purpose is a thing would help people to start thinking in that in
Yeah.
that way.
When it's brought up, you start thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you want to go some more through?
Yeah,
Do you want to read
absolutely.
some more of these and see where we land? So, what makes you feel as if your hair is on fire besides a fire?
Besides a fire. So this is a thought-provoking set of questions that begin
Yeah. To begin.
gearing you to think about a purpose.
Yeah. And these are passions. So we're thinking about passions.
Oh,
things
just a
that
passion.
we're really
All right, just a
passionate
passion.
about, that really drive us. What unique skills or talents do you have that you love to use and make you feel different? If you won the lottery today, what would you do differently? What would you do if you won the lottery, Chris?
I love that question because honestly, it's why I believe my passion is lined up with what I do. I would decrease my clinical hours. I would buy a nice car for my wife and myself. I'd probably get a boat or a jet ski, and that's a minimal amount of stuff. But besides decreasing my clinical hours by 5 to 10 clinical hours a week, I would absolutely continue working, doing therapy, probably brand the Through a Therapist Odds thing, definitely put some money behind that because we need money behind that, and continue launching further into what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great answer. I love to hear people say that because that means you are where you're supposed to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
I hear people say, "Oh, I would travel.
Right.
I would just travel the world."
Right.
Eventually, you're going to get tired of traveling and living out of a hotel.
It's not fulfilling.
Yeah, eventually you're going to want to come back home and settle in. What are you going to do then? That's the question.
So interesting with this question, if we could stay with it for a minute.
Yeah.
So there's actually an alcoholism relapse prevention tool that we use in therapy all the time for substance abuse. And it's think the drug all the way through, okay? And what that means is, well, first of all, what people do when they're trying to get into recovery is they'll fantasize, I'm sober, but man, that was awesome when I hung out with the guys. I was in the bar, shooting pool, and these ladies are walking around, and it's just so much fun, man. This is great. I really wish I could have a beer and hang out there.
That guy doesn't have a purpose.
Well, probably not. But that what I'm getting at is that's the minimized window that we look at. And the idea of think the drug all the way through as a relapse prevention tool so that you're not caught in fantasization or minimizing things or getting it glorified. You think it all the way through and you think, yeah, I'd hang out with the guys and shoot pool and there'd be some cool girls around and the game would be on and I'd relax, but then I wouldn't have a ride home. I'd probably drink more than I intended to drink. I'm late. I'm screwed up the next morning. Now I'm dead the next morning and I don't produce well and my wife's pissed off at me and right? And so if you think that all the way through, you get a much more picture and boom, the craving gets crushed.
Yeah.
And so I thought of that when you're thinking, well, what would you do with the lottery? You're right. You're going to get these responses, these crazy flippant responses. Well, I want to say when you're doing this passion work, you want to think that really all the way through.
That's a good point. I'm going to use that. I never thought about that before. Yeah. Never heard that before.
You want to think that all the way through and use that skill to really get at, well, wait a minute. If I got that great CEO position, I would make a lot more money. That'd be great. And you just minimize, you just glorify it. But you're not really thinking, well, I would be working 80 hours a week. I'd be having all these responsibilities that I don't have.
Miss my kids' game,
My kids and family is my passion. So it would actually, if you think it all the way through, completely destroy something that's your passion, potentially.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's
a good point.
That's
a very good point. So those were the passion questions. So we move on to principles. Is what is it that you truly value in life? That's a good one, right? What do you truly value, Chris?
What do I truly value? Well, I don't know how deep I want to go into that. Yes, and the Penguins that are playing tonight, and hopefully they win. No, I think I'll give a soft answer on that because we can go in that for a while. I mean, I've thought about that. I do value the close relationships that I have. I value, a lot of the religious perspective that I try to live by. Did I just snort on that?
Maybe a little bit.
But there are other things that are important.
I think you're there on the next one. How can you move toward those things you truly value and away from the things you don't value as much? So that's one of the questions. Any thoughts on that one?
Keep going.
What do these values say about what you're passionate about? Do these values point to an overarching purpose in life? Can you make a habit of the big positive values so they become part of your character and then your destiny?
So, interesting thing on this is, I'm trying to do it real quick on my phone. I love when I'm thinking about these things, to get definitions, right? Because the things that we're trying to understand, sometimes people don't really understand even the starting spot. So the question that popped in my mind that I didn't want to catch us either cold on is, what does value even mean, right? So think about this. The regard that something is held to deserve, to deserve, the importance, worth, or usefulness of something. That's the definition of value. Mm-hmm. Because when you started answering or going through those questions, I think sometimes people don't really understand what it means to value something in an emotional way. I mean, I know the value of $1. I know the value of a pizza.
Yeah.
But how do I place a value on things that I'm passionate about? And how do I match up what I really hold as important in my life with what I'm doing? And that's an involved process. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why this work is so deep.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
so involved.
That's a good point. There's some of those things that people probably aren't clear on, like the definition of that word.
Right.
So, yeah. All right, your purpose in one thing. This is the next section, the third section, and the final section of this thing. What have you been conditioned to think you're supposed to do with your life?
Can we pause there?
Yeah, please.
I'm going to go back into the old role here. Get your brain to think. You've been hitting me hard. Make me work. What does that do in your mind when go ahead and read it again?
What have you been conditioned to think you're supposed to do with your life?
Right. When you think about the way you grew up, when you think about what you've been told, when you think about, hey, I'm a guy, I'm supposed to do this, I'm a woman, and this is supposed to be my role. How does society influence us to subscribe to what is told to us? If you think about that for a minute. Does that make sense? Look,
maybe not 100%.
The world tells us what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
The world tells us what we're supposed to value. The world tells us what we're supposed to be passionate about. The world tells us in a lot of ways what we're supposed to believe. I
don't think it tells us what to be passionate about, but I think it tells us what to believe and what we're supposed to do and stuff like that.
Well, think about one of our American cultural ideas that pops into my mind, right? Supposed to be strong, independent, American. Independence. You live on your own brow kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Which is cool, and some of that is really true. I mean, I'm not trying to poke a hole in any particular belief or whatnot. I mean, I ascribe to a lot of those things myself. But what about being a part of a group, part of a committee, part of a function, or part of a movement? That speaks against the independent. You work on your own kind of mentality. I think that can create some passion for people. My whole point here that I wanted to pause on is I feel like there's some dangerous realities that we miss when we're not thoughtful about what we're taught, what we experience, and what that drives our belief systems and stuff. When it comes to which one are we on purpose, right?
Yeah.
You think about growing up in an alcoholic dysfunctional family. Okay, my purpose is to survive. Okay, that's what my life has taught me. That's the only purpose I can get through. So when you have blocks through experiences or through life lessons or through cultural meanings, that you have to weed through what you're being given as your purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make you think a little bit?
It does make me think, because I think some of that stuff, man, is left up to the interpretation of the individual.
Oh, yeah.
Because like you use the example of the alcoholic home, some kids use that as motivation to go out and become somebody. Mm-hmm. Some kids end up just like that. Mm-hmm. So there's that thing in there somewhere where you do make the decision on your own about how you're going to respond to the situation.
Oh, there's absolutely a tacitly learning process that's going on there too. Yeah, that's how an NBA star is made, or a CEO, out of the imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I do think overall there's a path that society defines: go to school, go to college, and then go get a good job.
That's what you're told.
Yeah. And that's what all this free college and stuff is about these days. Everybody's got to go to college. I don't think that's the path for everybody.
No, not at all.
And so I think my dad, he used to say, "Hey, son, how'd it go in school today?" And I'd say, "Oh, it went good, Dad." He'd say, "Good. It's important for you to get an education so you can get a good job."
Yep.
He said that. He said that every day, and I'm like, dude, if you said it one more time,
we're gonna hear the word.
I know, right? I'd love to hear it now, but I mean, but back in then, I'm like, golly, would he shut up?
Yeah.
He never said, "Hey, what are you passionate about? What's your purpose in life?
Yeah.
What you gonna do?
What really drives you?" And that's what these questions are really kind of getting at.
Yeah.
It makes you think in a different way. I think that we've got to be careful about what's in the way of what we really want to think about. Is kind of my main.
What do you mean by that?
Well, like I'm saying, if somebody tells you, you have to go to school, that's what you have to do. That gets in the way of what you think about internally as your purpose. Because I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
I'm doing something against what I was told by my dad.
Yeah. Right.
You have to unwed yourself.
And that goes down a whole nother rabbit hole because then you start doing stuff to please your parents or to please your whoever.
Right.
Well, they said I'm supposed to do this, so I better go do it.
Right.
Instead of thinking for yourself and making your own kind of decisions.
Exactly.
Right. Dude, everybody thinks college is the path, right? I know a kid that graduated with Jonathan just this past, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. Dude, this guy's got a landscaping business. He is crushing it. He's got all his stuff paid for. He don't have any debt, He's 18 years old, man. He's making money hand over fist. I mean,
I think a lot of kids are kind of going that way.
I think that's
honestly.
cool.
They're
I know
really,
your boy's a pretty driven kid.
right.
Yeah.
Right. He is. He's doing different things, and yeah, it's there's but again, society might begin to be changing that. Can we almost call it assumption?
Yeah.
You know, your family, your culture creates assumptions. I'm not a cultural expert around the world, but we have a lot of listeners, you know, in different countries, and those cultures drive the purpose that you're told that you're supposed to have.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's great. I'm not poo-pooing that. But sometimes that can get in the way of what really answering these questions that you're teaching us can provide for your thoughtfulness about, like, literally your life.
Yeah.
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 So you got any more questions?
What is the meaning of life, Chris? What do you
No
think,
bunny trail.
What do you think you're really supposed to do with your life? Right? Is there a tiny voice of deep doubt within you suggesting you are on the wrong track? I would say a lot of people have a huge voice screaming at them. Hey, wake up. Is that same voice nudging you forward with the sensation that you are on the right track? So that question would be, is the voice that's telling you you're on the wrong track nudging you on the right path? I think that's what that one is. What one thing do you think you're here for? What one thing would you focus on if you had nothing holding you back? And that's a good question, right? Well, what would you do if failure wasn't an option? If you had all the money that you needed to get it done, is there something that you would go and pursue? Ooh, what would you do differently if you had 1 year to live?
Right.
It's a powerful question, right? And then finally, write your epitaph from the perspective of having fulfilled your one thing and lived your purpose in life.
Epitaph.
It kind of goes back to that.
What's an epitaph?
Obituary.
Yes, it does.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right. The power behind these kind of questions, and these are, you know, for young therapists out there, you know, we can take some of these things and begin to frame those into the exploration that you're doing when you're looking at somebody's life. So I think that we can use these in whether it's an emotional capacity in therapy or whether you're just talking to your friend and working things out. You know, some of these questions are barstool questions, right? I mean, people have asked you just read one of the last ones there that made me think of that. It's like, oh yeah, these are what people think. If you had one life to live or 1 year to live, what would you do, right? Those kind of questions are fun. They're on game shows or, you know, bar stools, but understand in the 3 Ps when we're talking about what is your purpose and passion in life, they're very pointedly making you think about, you know, what's going on, right?
Yeah.
So here's what I think I want to do. We've still got some minutes left, but I think I want to go through each one of those and just read through them and let the audience hear those questions in rapid succession to begin thinking about it, and then we'll wrap up together, wrapping on what our brains have been thinking.
You want to read them this time?
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I'll do the first one, you do the second one. How about that? I hear a different voice. So your passion is first.
Going to get me confused here. Yeah.
Your passion.
Passion's first.
What are you passionate about in a way that defines who you are? What makes you feel as if your hair is on fire, besides a fire? What unique skills or talents do you have that you love to use and make you feel different? And if you won the lottery today, what would you do differently? Those are your passion questions. And
Okay,
your
so you want me to
principles?
read? Okay, I got it now. I thought you meant you were going to read a question.
I got you.
All right. So, what is it that you truly value in your life? How can you move towards those things you truly value and away from the things you don't value as much? What do these values say about what you are passionate about? Do these values point to an overarching purpose in life? Can you make a habit of the big positive values so they become part of your character and then your destiny?
And the last one is purpose, right? What have you been conditioned to think you're supposed to do with your life? What do you think you're really supposed to do with your life? Is there a tiny voice of doubt deep within you suggesting you're on the wrong track? Is that same voice nudging you forward with a sensation that you're on the right track? What one thing do you think you're here for? What one thing would you focus on if you had nothing to hold you back? What would you do differently if you knew you had 1 year to live? And write your epitaph about, or from the perspective of having fulfilled your one thing and lived your purpose in life. Look, I don't know what all those questions do in your mind, but what centers in my mind is the depthiness that these simple points of passion and purpose, that what it creates in your life. Like, for me, like I said before at the top of the show, I feel like I come across this when people are in discrepancy, and it is despair, Craig. I mean, it is sometimes disgust and resentment and anger and hurt that people have as just destructive forces in their life. And when you weed those things out and you do this work, man, this is freeing. I mean, you turn on when you start figuring these things out. It's a big deal.
I agree with you 100%. Logotherapy, man.
Yeah, that's what where a lot of this comes from, huh?
Yep. Viktor
Right.
Frankl.
So I'm curious, in your coaching with people, in much the same way, I was drawing that out in what I see in the therapy practice. I mean, you start out with a lot of this with people?
Yeah.
So
We always
right from
start
the-
with the foundational breath practice because a lot of these things, a lot of these questions can be answered in those breath practices we talked about when you're just sitting in silence. You're probably not going to figure much out if you're sitting in front of Netflix, right? So use that silence, man, to figure out what these answers are. To meditate
That's
on them.
interesting. Say more about that. Meditating, visualization, silence. I feel people get frustrated with that, and they probably heard you just now, but they're kind of like, wait a minute. What do you mean?
Well, I mean,
But again,
we
before you do, think about that tacitly learning process we talked
Yeah.
about a little bit ago.
yeah.
And
Yeah, those things are going to be in your mind, but one of the things we promote and talk about is sacred silence, if you will. It's just being quiet and being with yourself and listening for those answers, and they'll come up. I mean, how many times have you gotten a bright idea in the shower, right? Just because you're just in there with the water running, and you're just alone with your thoughts. You're not watching Netflix. You don't have Led Zeppelin cranked as you're riding down the road with the windows down like I like to do,
right.
So, it's just taking some moments to have those silent moments,
For me, it's on a trail.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I've
absolutely.
gotten out of trail hiking a little bit. I need to get back into it because, man, when I'm in the woods and going down a trail and I'm by myself, especially,
Yeah.
my brain is just free flowing.
Yeah, we talked about the difficulty of sitting and doing a breathing practice for some people. But just
Right.
go somewhere, and, like you said, on a trail where it's quiet and you can just be in the moment and sit with those things, man.
Probably not the safest thing, but I like getting in my kayak alone, as well.
Yeah, wear a life jacket.
Well, yeah. All right, Dad. You know what you just reminded me of? That commercial that they have that's like, the insurance guy, the Progressive Insurance, he's trying to help people not become their parents.
Oh, Lord.
You were just on that commercial, man.
That's a good one.
That's hysterical.
Yeah.
So-
I give my father a hard time, but some days I'm like, Jesus, you're just like him.
That's why that commercial is golden, man, because we absolutely do those things. I love it when somebody, the lady's sitting in the airport and the guy's running down the hallway to get to his plane. She's like, looks like somebody should have left a little bit earlier. It's classic. I think it's awesome.
God.
So how would you summarize us up, Mr. Graves, with what are the whole 3 Ps: passion, purpose, and principles?
I guess in summary, man, I would just say to be aware that that they're there and begin thinking about them, because like you said, that puts you kind of on the path of better overall mental health, right?
That's one of the things our show is about. That's why I
Yeah.
really appreciate what you're doing, Craig. We're not going to see you for 5 more months. This is going to be a long time.
I know. How are you going to make it, dude?
Right? I don't know,
How are you going to
man.
survive?
We got a couple other co-hosts. One of them makes fun of the way I say co-host. I think that's funny too. But because this show is really about your mental health and how you're managing life. And I just appreciate what you've been doing, my friend, and I've been able to watch you, grow in this. That's why I said you're not the perfect co-host anymore, because you know too much.
Yeah.
You really, you've been studying this stuff, and whether it's with a coach or whether it's with a pastor or whether it's with a therapist or really a deep, close, trusted friend that you can get a lot of safety built in around that relationship. I wanted to qualify that because this work is best done when you can really safely explore these things. And when you do get your passion and purpose and principles figured out, it's just huge. I've tried to draw that out.
You know, it really is. And what I'll say is if you're interested in doing this, then go to my website and contact me.
Right.
And I'll send you this PDF, and I'll even work with you for an hour or two for free.
Awesome.
If you want to talk through some of these questions.
Wow. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's really cool of you, Craig. I appreciate that a lot.
Yep.
So through Therapist Eyes Tribe, you heard it for free. A session or two on purpose, principles, and passion with Mr. Craig Graves.
Yep. Mention the show when you sign up.
You got to say through Therapist Eyes. That'll clue him in memory. Yeah, that would be that'll trigger his memory. Y'all, I've enjoyed you, Craig. Guys, we're gonna have a break with Thanksgiving. I'm not sure when this one's gonna come out. I guess. Well, we'll figure it out. It might be after Thanksgiving. So, nevertheless, around the world, we're in the holiday season with Christmas and Thanksgiving in the States anyway. And I just want you to have a safe, happy, Merry Christmas and enjoy the holiday seasons. I know they can be stressful. They can be tough times, but they can be really wonderful and beautiful times too. Here's for me hoping that you make this holiday season a wonderful time for you and your family. So take care, and we will see you guys next week.